There is a silent countdown happening in your backyard right now. Not because you chose the wrong crops, not because your technique is wrong, but because your soil stopped working, and nobody told you. I was at a garden centre a few weeks ago, one of those warehouse-scale places where everything comes wrapped in plastic and priced like it contains a solution. I was standing in the fertilizer aisle looking at $18 bags of organic soil conditioner when I looked out the window and watched a city maintenance crew vacuum every fallen leaf off the street into a truck headed for a landfill. It clicked in a way I couldn't unfocus. We bag the exact material our soil is trying to build itself from. We haul it away. Then we drive to a store and buy a pale industrial substitute for it. And we do this every season and wonder why the garden keeps asking for more. That is the heist. And most of us have been participating in it without knowing it existed. Here's what the heist actually is. Modern gardening was built on a foundational lie, that soil is a medium. A passive brown substrate that holds a plant upright while you pump chemistry through it. Buy the right bag, apply the right liquid, control the outcome. That is the entire architecture of the industry. But soil is not a medium. Soil is an intelligence. And the moment you understand what that intelligence actually does, mechanically, biologically, specifically, these 5 crops start performing in ways that seem almost impossible for the space you're working with. The absolute foundation of everything I'm about to show you is this. A 2019 study from the Rodale Institute tracked the same 5 crops planted side by side. One bed conventionally maintained, one biologically active through consistent organic amendment. Same seeds, same spacing, same sunlight and rainfall. The biologically active beds produced 62% more yield across all 5 crops. Not different crops. Not different techniques. Different ground. That number is the spine of this entire video. Because every crop I'm about to show you performs at its ceiling when that biological engine is running, and well below it when it isn't. What the industry wants to sell you is a crop selection problem. What you actually have is a soil biology problem, and those require completely different solutions. Before the season opens, do one thing. Spread a 2 to 3 inch layer of aged compost across every bed you're planning to plant. Not bagged potting mix, not synthetic amendment. Composted organic matter, kitchen scraps that have fully broken down, aged manure, yard waste that has finished processing. You are not fertilizing. You are inoculating. You are restarting the biological engine that should have been running all along. Do it once and the results are modest. Do it every season for 3 years and your garden becomes almost unrecognizable. Now, the 5 crops. Most people grow bush beans. They spread outward across the soil, occupy a 2-dimensional circle, produce one main harvest window, and then they're done. Pole beans do something completely different. First, the obvious thing, they grow vertically. A simple trellis, stakes, and string, nothing that requires skill to build, and suddenly you are growing in 3 dimensions instead of 2. The same footprint that produces one layer of beans now produces multiple layers. The yield comparison isn't close. But here is what almost nobody mentions about pole beans, and it changes how you understand why they belong in a small garden. They fix nitrogen. Pole beans are legumes. They carry a symbiotic relationship with specific soil bacteria, rhizobia, that pull nitrogen directly from the atmosphere and deposit it into the soil through the root system as the plant grows. A healthy pole bean planting doesn't just use the ground, it improves it for every crop planted after it. In a genuinely productive small garden system, pole beans aren't just a vertical yield strategy. They are a soil amendment that also happens to feed you. Build the trellis before you plant. Space seeds 4 to 6 inches apart at the base. Guide the first few inches upward. After that, the vines climb without help. The critical rule is harvest frequency. Pick every 2 to 3 days at peak season. Leave mature pods on the vine and the plant reads its reproductive cycle as complete and slows production. Strip those pods and the plant keeps pushing new ones. The more you take, the more it gives. That is not a metaphor. It is a hormonal response built into the plant's biology. When the season ends, cut the plants at the base. Leave the root system in the soil. The nitrogen deposits stay where they belong. Indeterminate tomatoes do not have a stop switch. Determinate varieties, the ones filling most garden centre shelves, grow to a fixed height, drop their fruit in a compressed window, and die. That structure is convenient for machines. It is a disaster for a family trying to eat through summer and fall. Indeterminate varieties keep growing until the frost physically kills them. They are, as one seed saver I once read described them, the ghost of the ancestral garden. The version of the plant that existed before industrial breeding compressed its production timeline. But here is where most people fail with indeterminate tomatoes, and why the technique matters as much as the variety. They let them sprawl. A tomato growing across the ground is a biological sink. Air circulation stops, disease pressure increases. The plant spends its energy defending itself rather than producing. And the footprint expands until it has consumed space that should belong to something else. Grow them vertically. Install strong support before you plant. A stake, a cage, a string hung from overhead if you have something to hang it from. As the plant grows, tie it upward weakly. Remove the suckers, the shoots that emerge at the junction between the main stem and a branch. Each one, left unchecked, becomes a secondary plant, competing for the same root system's resources. Prune them, and you force the plant's entire circulatory system into fruit production. You are turning a sprawling organism into a high-pressure calorie pipe pointed directly at your harvest basket. One more thing about indeterminate tomatoes that most small garden content skips entirely. They are heavy feeders of calcium and magnesium across a long season. In depleted soil, mineral availability runs out quickly. The plant produces aggressively at first, drawing down whatever reserves exist, and then stalls. The classic symptom is blossom end rot on late-season fruit. Most people diagnose that as a watering problem. It is almost always a calcium deficiency, and calcium deficiency in soil that contains adequate calcium is a soil biology problem. The mineral exists, but nothing is processing it into bioavailable form. Fix the soil. Feed it before the season opens. And this plant will give you fruit from July through the first frost in a vertical footprint smaller than a square meter. Most people treat a head of lettuce like a mine. Wait for it to reach full size, extract the whole thing, and the mine is closed. The soil sits empty for weeks while the next planting catches up. That is idle soil. And idle soil is a system leaking energy. The outer leaves of a lettuce or any cut-and-come-again green are continuously being replaced from the center. The plant is biologically designed to regrow. When you harvest the whole thing, you end the conversation at exactly the moment it was becoming valuable. Here is the shift. Harvest only the outer leaves. Leave the center intact. Return in 7 to 10 days. More leaves will be waiting. Stagger your plantings. Sow a short row, wait a week, sow another, and you eliminate the glutton gap cycle that makes most lettuce plantings feel useless. You create a steady, continuous harvest from a footprint smaller than a window box, running for weeks from a single planting. One thing worth understanding about this technique that the guides rarely say: cut-and-come-again greens are among the most sensitive crops to soil biology. In depleted soil, the center of the plant struggles to regenerate between harvests. Growth slows, bitterness increases, the productive window compresses. In biologically active soil, that center keeps pushing. The plant stays vigorous. The same technique, the same variety, the same spacing, completely different results depending on what is happening underground. Kale is the most forgiving crop on this list in terms of raw soil demands. It will grow in ground that would stall most other crops. But growing and producing generously over a full season are different things. The technique is straightforward. Space plants 18 to 24 inches apart. Begin harvesting from the bottom of the plant, always the oldest, lowest leaves first. Leave the crown and the upper growth entirely untouched. The plant grows upward as you harvest downward, maintaining a living food source for the entire season. One plant managed this way produces dozens of harvests. The mechanism underneath that technique is worth understanding. Kale in its first year is in full leaf production mode. When you remove the lowest leaves consistently, you are preventing the lower canopy from shading and senescing naturally, which is what eventually signals the plant to redirect energy away from leaf production. You are keeping it in its primary production state longer by working with its own biological logic rather than around it. In biologically active soil, a kale plant started in spring will still be producing actively in November. In depleted soil, the same plant produces a decent early harvest and progressively toughens and slows as the season progresses. The technique is the same, the ground is the variable. 25 to 30 days from seed to harvest. No transplanting. Direct sow into the soil, harvest, sow again. 4 or 5 complete cycles in a single growing season from the same patch of ground. That is what a radish is. Not primarily a food, though you will eat them, but a timing tool that keeps the biological system running in the gaps between everything else. Here is what matters about radishes that almost no small garden content explains. Their taproot, particularly in larger varieties like daikon, penetrates 18 to 24 inches into the soil. As it grows and eventually decomposes, it fractures compaction layers and creates drainage channels that subsequent crops benefit from. You are not just filling empty space, you are doing structural work on the soil while producing food at the same time. And the empty space matters. Bare, exposed soil loses moisture faster, loses microbial activity, and loses biological momentum. Leaving ground idle between plantings is not neutral. It is a slow withdrawal from the biological account you are trying to build. Radishes keep that account active between everything else. Plant them in every gap. Between slower crops, between seasons, in any space that would otherwise sit empty. Never let the ground go quiet. Now step back and look at what these 5 crops are actually doing. Leaf lettuce leverages continuous root-supported regeneration. Pole beans feed the soil as they feed you. Indeterminate tomatoes demand and reward biological mineral availability. Kale aligns with the plant's own production biology. Radishes maintain soil momentum and structural integrity in the gaps. None of this is primarily about space efficiency. All of it is about working with biological systems rather than around them. That is the real logic. Not grow upward instead of outward. Not choose crops that produce multiple times. The logic is understand what your soil needs to do and choose crops that both benefit from that activity and contribute to it. A garden built on that principle improves every season. The soil gets more active, the yields increase, the labor decreases because a biologically healthy system requires far less intervention than a depleted one demanding constant correction. I'll be honest with you, once you understand that your garden is capable of this level of production, you cannot go back to the version of gardening where an $18 bag of processed growing medium felt like the solution. You cannot unsee the waste in a bare patch of soil between plants. You cannot look at a conventional spring cleanup, bagging the leaves, stripping the beds, starting fresh from scratch, without understanding what is actually being thrown away. It is a burden of a kind, because now, if the garden is underperforming, you know it is not a crop selection problem. You know where to look, and you know how to fix it. If you want to understand your garden at the level of mechanism rather than method, if you are done buying solutions and ready to build a system, this is where that work happens. Subscribe. Every week we go this deep. Here is what I deliberately left out of today's video. The specific timing for compost application, the window that determines whether your amendment feeds the crops during the growing season or feeds the soil microbes without reaching the plants in time. Getting that timing wrong is one of the most common reasons correctly amended soil still disappoints. It is a short video and it changes everything covered here. That is next week. Subscribe so you are there when it does. Which of these 5 crops have you grown, and did the results match what the guides promised? Drop the full story below. Not just the crop, what the soil was like, what actually happened, what surprised you. I read every single one.